In the late years of the Ming dynasty, China witnessed the rule of an emperor known for both brilliance and cruelty. Born Li Zheng, he ascended the throne at 23 after the sudden death of his father, Emperor Hongwei. Educated in Confucian classics and trained in military strategy, Li Zheng viewed discipline as the essence of order. His reign began with reforms that strengthened the imperial treasury and restored administrative control across the empire. Guys, can you help me to hit 1,000 subscribers on this channel? And it's my dream, sorry for interruption. It's humble request, let's jump into the video. From the start, the emperor demanded absolute obedience. He reorganized the bureaucracy, personally reviewing provincial reports, and punished any form of corruption. Under his rule, tax collection became more efficient and trade routes reopened. However, his strictness also bred fear. Officials spoke carefully in his presence, knowing that a single misstep could cost them their position or worse. The emperor's vision of unity often meant submission under his unyielding authority. Li Zheng's early reign was marked by monumental construction projects. He commissioned new temples, expanded the Forbidden City's courtyards, and ordered gold plating on certain palace walls to reflect sunlight during imperial ceremonies. He believed gold represented divine energy, and that his rule was the physical manifestation of heavenly light on earth. The emperor's fascination with gold would later shape his most infamous creation. His court scholars described him as both intelligent and unpredictable. He could spend hours studying astronomy and mathematics, then abruptly order executions for minor offenses. To his mind, chaos was born from leniency. This philosophy was reflected in his governance, where mercy was seen as weakness and perfection as duty. The empire prospered materially, but a quiet fear spread among his ministers and guards. The emperor was also obsessed with time and precision. He ordered the construction of water clocks in every major city and demanded daily reports on the movement of the sun. He believed that the sun's consistency mirrored his own ideal of rule, steady, bright, and unforgiving. This belief system gradually merged governance with ideology, portraying the emperor as both a ruler and a cosmic symbol. Religious sects and scholars began referring to him as the dragon who commands the light. While some praised this title as divine recognition, others saw it as a sign of dangerous self-worship. Within a decade, temples were required to display golden mirrors engraved with his emblem. Peasants bowed before these mirrors during harvest festivals, believing they were honoring the emperor's reflection rather than the gods. Li Zheng's focus on surveillance and purity extended beyond symbolism. He created the Bureau of Radiance, an elite force tasked with monitoring loyalty among officials. The bureau reported directly to the emperor and operated outside legal restrictions. Their presence in villages and provincial courts ensured that discontent remained hidden. Any whisper of rebellion, even unproven, was enough to summon investigation and punishment. In his 30th year, the emperor introduced what he called the Golden Mandate. It required all noble families to send their sons to the capital for education and loyalty training. These sons were taught imperial history, military discipline, and obedience rituals. Through them, Li Zheng ensured that regional lords remained dependent on his approval. The empire became unified but emotionally hollow, bound by fear rather than trust. The emperor's attention soon turned to art and architecture. He believed that beauty reflected moral strength and ordered the construction of sunlit gardens around the palace. Gold-plated tiles and mirrored walls filled the courtyards, casting light in every direction. Foreign envoys described the palace as a sea of brilliance where no shadow dared to linger. To Li Zheng, this endless light symbolized purity and the triumph of order over corruption. Despite his achievements, his methods were severe. Punishments for dissent included public humiliation, exile, and forced labor on imperial projects. Yet these measures were viewed as necessary by many officials who valued stability over compassion. Records from the time describe the emperor as a man of clarity and precision, whose voice carried the weight of command and whose decisions were unquestionable. He surrounded himself with artisans, engineers, and alchemists who sought to please him through invention. One such group developed reflective alloys that could concentrate sunlight. Initially, these mirrors were intended for ceremonial use, amplifying light during imperial processions. The emperor, however, saw potential beyond aesthetics. His interest in light's physical and symbolic power deepened into experimentation. The imperial archives note several references to sun chambers during this period. These were experimental rooms built to study the effects of reflected heat on crops, metals, and textiles. Courtiers believed the emperor was exploring agricultural innovation. In truth, these early chambers served as the foundation for something far more ominous that would emerge later in his reign. While his empire expanded and the treasury overflowed, discontent grew beneath the surface. Scholars began questioning his increasing reliance on surveillance and divine imagery. Some privately compared him to past tyrants who confused divinity with dominion. The Bureau of Radiance, however, silenced most dissent through intimidation and secret arrests. Publicly, the emperor remained unchallenged, his authority reinforced by the unrelenting glow of the palace. Li Zheng's policies also reshaped the daily lives of commoners. Farmers were required to work under strict schedules determined by the sun's position. Bells rang at sunrise and sunset across villages, enforcing productivity as a moral duty. The emperor believed that aligning human behavior with natural cycles would eliminate disorder. This fusion of nature, discipline, and governance became the hallmark of his ideology. In the capital, ceremonies grew increasingly elaborate. The emperor would appear surrounded by golden draperies and mirrors, his image multiplied in dazzling reflections. Observers described these spectacles as overwhelming to the eye, leaving attendants blinded by brilliance. It was said that no one could look upon him directly for long. The emperor interpreted this as proof of divine radiance, a sign that heaven itself shielded mortals from his full presence. Behind this grandeur, the emperor's paranoia deepened. He trusted few advisors and replaced older officials with younger, more obedient ones. Many of his early supporters were executed or sent into exile under accusations of disloyalty. The Bureau of Radiance expanded its network, recording the slightest gestures or words that might indicate betrayal. Within the Forbidden City, even whispers could be fatal. By his mid-40s, Li Zheng had consolidated absolute control over every aspect of the empire. Trade flourished, roads were secure, and the borders were stable. Yet peace came at the price of silence. The emperor's light, once a symbol of renewal, had become a tool of dominance. Scholars no longer wrote freely, artisans created only what pleased him, and temples echoed his name more than that of any god. Within his golden halls, the emperor grew increasingly isolated. He walked the mirrored corridors of his palace, watching his reflection multiply endlessly across polished walls. To him, each reflection represented a part of his eternal rule, unchanging, perfect, and invincible. What he did not realize was that this obsession with reflection would soon give rise to his most feared creation, one that would define the final years of his reign. The first hints of its construction appeared quietly in the archives, a project authorized under the emperor's private seal, known only as the Chamber of Light. Its stated purpose was research into solar properties, but the true nature of this endeavor remained hidden from public knowledge. Workers who built it never spoke again, and its doors remained sealed except by imperial command. As the sun rose each morning over the capital, its light glinted across the palace roofs, casting a golden hue over the empire. To the people, it was a sign of prosperity and order. To those within the Forbidden City, it was a reminder of power that demanded obedience. And in the heart of that brilliance, the emperor stood, unquestioned, illuminated, and entirely alone. By the beginning of his 5th decade, Emperor Li Zheng had transformed light from a symbol of divinity into an instrument of authority. His fascination with sunlight intensified, and the Bureau of Radiance was instructed to collect data on temperature, reflection, and heat concentration. Scholars believed he sought to create an energy source to power the empire's industries. In reality, his interest was moving toward control through suffering, disguised as science. The project, known as the Chamber of Light, was relocated to the Imperial Gardens, where artisans built walls entirely covered with gold and bronze mirrors. The structure was sealed from the outside, with narrow slots that allowed sunlight to enter from multiple angles. The interior temperature rose dramatically during midday, and surfaces grew hot enough to scorch cloth or paper. The emperor called it his sun chamber, declaring it a symbol of heavenly justice. Li Zheng believed that light revealed truth and purity. He argued that those who betrayed the empire did so because their hearts remained in shadow. To cleanse them, they needed to face the brilliance of the sun. This philosophy became the moral foundation of the sun chamber. It was presented not as torture, but as purification through light. The emperor announced that the unworthy would be bathed in radiance until falsehood evaporated. At first, the chamber was used for symbolic rituals. Prisoners accused of disloyalty were brought inside for brief exposure, forced to kneel as light reflected on their faces. The emperor would observe from a shaded platform through a narrow viewing slit. Over time, exposure sessions lengthened. The emperor noted how long each prisoner endured before fainting. He recorded these durations meticulously, believing endurance indicated spiritual strength. Gradually, the chamber's purpose changed from ritual to punishment. The emperor ordered the mirrors to be adjusted to concentrate heat more precisely. Metalworkers refined the surfaces until they reflected sunlight with near-perfect clarity. By late summer, temperatures inside the chamber exceeded human tolerance. Reports from palace scribes describe guards removing unconscious prisoners whose skin bore marks of severe burns. The emperor interpreted these burns as evidence of purification rather than cruelty. The sun chamber soon became the most feared place in the empire. Its existence was known only through whispers among officials and guards. It was said that entering the chamber meant never returning unchanged. The Bureau of Radiance began sending high-ranking officials accused of corruption or secrecy into it. Many died within hours. Those who survived were released, disfigured and blinded by light, their minds fractured. Their silence became the emperor's most effective deterrent. The emperor expanded the complex, ordering multiple chambers of varying size and brightness. Some were lined with polished brass for lower-ranking offenders, while others used pure gold for nobles or generals. The emperor justified this hierarchy by claiming that higher ranks required purer reflection. The more valuable the metal, the greater the cleansing. Thus, wealth and punishment became strangely intertwined in his system of justice. Records show that the chambers were not limited to political prisoners. Artists who produced unsatisfactory portraits, scholars who questioned the emperor's logic, and servants accused of gossip were also sent inside. Exposure varied from minutes to days, depending on the offense. In extreme cases, victims were left until death. The chamber attendants were instructed to maintain silence, as the emperor considered noise a distraction from divine retribution. To the public, Li Zheng continued to appear as a wise and enlightened ruler. He sponsored agricultural innovations, funded canal repairs, and celebrated annual festivals of light. During these events, golden lanterns illuminated the capital, and citizens praised the emperor for bringing brightness to their lives. None realized that beneath the same golden glow, others were dying in unbearable heat within the palace walls. Inside the Forbidden City, the emperor's inner circle grew smaller. Those who questioned the sun chamber disappeared. Artisans tasked with maintaining its mirrors were replaced frequently to prevent leaks of information. The Bureau of Radiance operated it with absolute secrecy, its members sworn to eternal silence under penalty of death. The emperor's obsession with control had reached the point where knowledge itself was restricted. By the second decade of its use, the sun chamber had evolved into a complex system of physical and psychological torture. Prisoners were placed in rooms at different times of day to maximize heat exposure. Water was withheld, forcing them to endure both burning and dehydration. Guards rotated shifts in silence, recording the exact duration of each death. Every detail was archived in imperial ledgers under the heading "Reflections Completed." Some historians suggest that Li Zheng viewed the sun chamber as a moral experiment. He wanted to prove that pain could reveal the true nature of loyalty. Survivors often confessed to crimes they had never committed, believing it was the only way to escape the burning light. The emperor cited these confessions as proof of divine justice, claiming that the chamber exposed hidden guilt that ordinary trials could not detect. Over time, the emperor's reasoning became detached from reality. He began to interpret the chamber's reflections as omens. He believed the shapes of the burning bodies formed celestial symbols. Court scribes were ordered to record these patterns and interpret them for policy decisions. If a reflection resembled a dragon, it was considered a sign of strength. If it resembled a cloud, it meant disobedience among the provinces. Thus, governance and punishment became intertwined through superstition. The emperor also ordered the construction of miniature sun chambers in regional provinces. These smaller versions were made of polished bronze and used by local governors as instruments of interrogation. Reports indicate that many officials abused this system, using the chambers to eliminate rivals or intimidate populations. The imperial court received frequent petitions for mercy, but none reached the emperor. The Bureau of Radiance intercepted all appeals. Within the palace, fear grew among servants and guards. The intense heat from the chambers affected nearby rooms, causing the air to shimmer during midday. Workers fainted during maintenance, and food supplies spoiled quickly in the surrounding storage halls. Yet no one dared suggest removing or modifying the structure. To question the sun chamber was to question the emperor's divine authority. Foreign envoys who visited the court noticed the emperor's growing isolation. He rarely appeared in public and often conducted meetings within golden-walled chambers that reflected light in all directions. Many ambassadors described the experience as blinding and disorienting. Some speculated that the emperor's eyes had become sensitive to darkness, forcing him to remain surrounded by brightness at all times. His reliance on reflected light had become both physical and psychological dependence. By his late 50s, Emperor Li Zheng had transformed from a reformer into an autocrat sustained by his own ideology. The sun chamber was no longer a tool, but a symbol of his identity. He referred to it as the mirror of the heavens, claiming that those who perished within had offered their bodies to the empire's eternal light. Courtiers repeated these words publicly, though privately they trembled at the thought of being summoned there themselves. Historical accounts describe how the emperor began spending hours alone near the chambers, silently observing the glow on their surfaces. He was said to believe that the reflections contained the voices of the purified. Guards often found him murmuring to the golden walls as if conversing with spirits. His fixation on the chamber's radiance deepened into a form of worship that replaced both religion and governance. As the years passed, the empire remained outwardly stable but internally brittle. Fear governed more effectively than law, and silence replaced loyalty. The people saw only the surface, a ruler who brought prosperity and order. They never saw the heat that consumed countless lives behind the mirrored walls of the palace. Within those walls, the golden chambers continued to glow, fueled by the sun and guarded by silence. Their purpose was now inseparable from the emperor's will, and their light no longer symbolized truth or justice. It had become something else entirely, a reflection of power without compassion, radiance without mercy, and an empire that mistook brightness for virtue. In the final years of his reign, Emperor Li Zheng's devotion to the sun chamber consumed him completely. He ordered the construction of one final chamber, larger, purer, and more reflective than all before. This celestial mirror was built at the palace's highest point, its walls layered with polished gold, bronze, and crystal. No one except the emperor and his chosen attendants were permitted entry. He declared that the chamber would unite him with the heavens, that his spirit would merge with the sun itself. Ministers pleaded for him to reconsider, but their words fell on deaf ears. The emperor began performing rituals inside the celestial mirror during midday, when the sun was at its peak. He sat cross-legged on the floor as beams of light enveloped him from every direction. Guards reported the smell of burning fabric and the faint sound of chanting. He emerged drenched in sweat, claiming he had seen visions of ancestors guiding him toward eternal enlightenment. These sessions grew longer, and his health began to deteriorate. As instability spread across the provinces, the emperor grew increasingly paranoid. He accused his ministers of plotting betrayal and sent many to the sun chamber for questioning. The Bureau of Radiance recorded more executions in those years than in the entire previous decade. The empire's resources dwindled, temples fell into disrepair, and famine spread among the common people. Yet in the capital, the emperor's palace still glowed with blinding light each morning. One summer afternoon, the emperor entered the celestial mirror alone. He ordered that no one disturb him until sunset. Hours passed as the chamber's walls reflected the blazing sun inward. The heat grew unbearable, and attendants outside smelled burning gold and cloth. When the doors were finally opened, they found the emperor collapsed in the center of the room, his robes fused to his skin, his crown melted beside him. He had become a victim of his own creation. The chamber was sealed permanently, its doors welded shut under imperial decree by the council that succeeded him.